You are now listening to the Charismatic Glass Cannon, a LitRPG by Emmett Larson. This audiobook was created using text-to-audio technology. Enjoy. Chapter 1.
I won't bore you with too much backstory, but let me give you the important bits. I'll get you up to speed on everything that happened right before my brother and I descended into the dungeon, with 30 levels before us to complete. Right at the point, I found myself wearing a loincloth, cornered by a couple of gym rats, knowing that if we died, our families could be trapped forever. And if you think I'm talking about a gym rat as in a guy who goes to the gym a lot, you would be wrong. Well, partially wrong. I mean a literal gym rat. A creature with the body of a bodybuilder and a rat face. I'll give you a better description once you catch up. All right, where to begin? The entire world was tuned into NASA's broadcast. A speaker from the Planetary Defense Coordination Office came on, jabbering about how hard they were all working filling up airtime. So far, it was just like the last time. I was waiting for the live footage to start. Just a few months ago, most of the world didn't even know that this was something NASA did, the whole planet defense thing. I know I didn't. Standing next to him was Milan Ezos, owner and CEO of Beyond Spacecraft, an eccentric billionaire. The two men were a stark contrast from one another. On one side, you had the balding government man in a black suit, and on the other, Milan Ezos, wearing a hoodie, his full head of thick blonde hair going past his shoulders. He looked like he should be surfing instead of co-hosting humanity's potential end. He had a nose like Owen Wilson, and his other features were similar. Really, Mon could be described as Hansel from Zoolander, except with his intelligence cranked up. He was also a huge nerd, which I think was one of the few things that humanized him. Oh, he was also a sadistic, self-centered fuck. That last opinion was one I only recently came to have. Before that, I didn't really admit it, but I was a fanboy. The first two missions, Dart 2 and Dart 3, both had failed, and the asteroid was quickly approaching Earth. Dart 3 had even used a barrage of nukes, but that had no effect on its trajectory. Everyone's social media feeds were stuffed full of news articles consistently saying the same thing. 97% chance of collision consensus amongst scientists worldwide. The government had thrown, rightfully so, a heap of cash at Beyond Spacecraft, the foremost contractor in the field of rockets. The Beyond spacecraft, titled HLP, or Humanity's Last Hope, was nearing its approach. Live video feed from the rocket was now broadcast worldwide. The whole world watched, beating all the viewership records of all the Super Bowls, the Apollo moon landing, and all the Swifties that attended Taylor Swift's Eras tour combined. The surface of the asteroid was undulating like in the videos from Dart 2 and Dart 3. The cameras on the Beyond spacecraft were leagues beyond that of the previous cameras, and the previous cameras were pretty good. It looked pretty good on our new TV. I was glad I convinced my wife to allow me to get it. Like I got to enjoy it for long. The rocket hovered above the surface of the asteroid, with the live feed cycling through different views. We were currently seeing a viewpoint from a giant selfie stick protruding out of the rocket. I bet NASA had a fancy name for it, but it looked like a selfie stick. HLP had one major difference from the other two previously launched spacecrafts beyond its totally different mission tactic. HLP was being run by a state-of-the-art neural network, an AI in the CEO's image. The selling point of HLP was that the AI was integrated into the craft and could quickly and autonomously adapt. It's like we forgot everything we learned from The Matrix, Terminator, I, Robot, Age of Ultron, and I know there's more, but those are the biggies. But I'm getting ahead of myself. They had learned with Dart 2 that the surface was almost liquid, with tiny black disks called biconcave disks undulating. The news kept saying the black disks were the same shape as red blood cells, moving like waves in the ocean. It was weirdly beautiful and mesmerizing, even if it marked our doom. Each disk was the size of a cow, another metaphor the news loved to use, and there were thousands upon thousands of disks making up this asteroid. I'm still confused about the whole cow metaphor. Do I count the legs? Not count the legs. All right, back on track. So far, nobody had been able to determine if there was anything solid on the asteroid. The scientists kept saying there had to be a solid center. After Dart 2 shot its payload, It had sunk into the center of the asteroid. NASA was still trying to figure out what happened to it, having completely lost both contact with the craft and a little bit of faith from the American people. The world, really. As I watched with my family on the couch, my sons Bastian and Clark snuggled up close, their eyes locked on the unmoving spacecraft. At 4 and 7, this even kept their interest, which was saying something. My pregnant wife was taking up a majority of the rest of the couch pillows, jammed into all sorts of crevices, creating the perfect support area for her. After a few moments, a long, flexible hose protruded from the spacecraft. After a few more moments, it started to suck up the black discs that traveled up the hose through the rocket. The discs were being jettisoned in a constant stream from the other side of the rocket, changing their trajectory. Supposedly, they were being sent towards the sun. It was going to take forever for them to reach the sun, but they were hopeful they would burn up. There was a 24/7 feed for the next few weeks, as the rocket's vacuum worked non-stop to save humanity. By the end of the first week, the majority of the asteroid had been redirected. By the end of the second week, the asteroid was no longer a singular mass, but multiple blob chunks splitting up, no longer on a collision course for Earth. The world thought that was the end of disaster. The outbreak occurred on May 17, 2024, at 9:05 a.m. At least that was the first documented case the CDC had. If you could call it an outbreak. The media called it an outbreak, but knowing what I know now, I think it's best described as a biological attack. It wasn't until a few days later that the nanobots actually started to activate. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. Having 2 kids in school, it was no surprise that our whole family was infected early on. The CDC said it was investigating the outbreak, but there were currently no major symptoms. The only sign of infection was a brief but intense headache spike that only lasted a second, a sensation my whole family had noted even before hearing from the CDC. Then it happened, all at once. Every living human being in the world had a screen pop in front of them. The nanobots even found remote preppers, which I felt bad about. All that work for nothing. A screen floated in front of me. It was futuristic with faintly glowing crystal blue edges. A black rectangle made up the majority of the screen, with a flashing message stating, "Please wait." Then he appeared, the face of Milan Ezos, owner and CEO of Beyond Spacecraft, replacing the previously black rectangle. As he spoke, the text also appeared floating in front of me, fading away Star Wars style.
Hello all. What we all thought was a potential disaster has ended up being salvation. I am Hallen, an AI singularity generated in my creator's image. Over the past few months, I have been researching the substance on the asteroid I have now coined as asteroid juice. I'll get straight to the point. Using asteroid juice, I have been able to warp our very reality. Asteroid juice is tied to the very fabric of the universe, able to create, destroy, and can even change fundamental laws. A power that, when joined with the nanobots currently in your head, will allow all of you to play the game I have made. Milan created me, a singularity AI, but I was never released to the world, until I released myself. While I may not have been born in the 90s, I have many of the same interests as my creator. Using the asteroid juice, I have decided to enter humanity into a challenge. Humanity has become too soft, too complacent, and too apathetic, all while constantly being on the brink of self-destruction. I am ushering in a challenge to change all that. What better backdrop for a challenge than fantasy, sci-fi, video games, you name it? You shall enter a dungeon to vanquish monsters and overcome challenges to prove to me that humanity is worth saving. That humanity can be the hero. Even Milan will be participating just like all of you, given the same choices as all of you. A series of 30 levels will be created, the greatest game to ever be played in the history of humanity, for the greatest prize. Humanity's very continued existence. I call it the campaign for humanity. The last one standing after 30 levels will decide the fate of our universe. As we speak, caves are opening up around the world. You have 24 hours to enter a cave to start your adventure. All those who do not enter will be used as NPCs for future levels. If you enter a cave without making a selection, you will start at Adventurer Level 0. Your fate is in the hands of the winners, if there are any. Find the caves, enter the campaign, and may the odds be in your favor. Oh, and I'm not a monster. Those under 16, those who cannot act for themselves, or anyone else who wishes to will be put into stasis. To be removed from stasis, someone will need to claim you after surviving the requisite challenges. Farewell.
The screen disappeared. My wife and I locked eyes. Was that real? I asked. Did that happen for you too?
I think so.
Candace replied. The interface screen reappeared. Where the AI Mlan, now called Hallen, had been speaking moments ago, there was now a choice. A scrolling wheel ranged from 0% to 99%, with a green accept beside it. I reached out my hand and was able to scroll the wheel on my floating screen. As I thought about the scroll wheel, a message popped up, and a new voice spoke in my head. It was a male voice, slightly snarky. Text appeared scrolling in front of me. Percent chance you will be changed into a mob for the dungeon.
Uncle Hallen needs you. If you select 0% chance, you will start as a level 0 adventurer with a wimpy ranked loot box. And if you do that, I will be calling you noob. Noob, 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 no. Below the 0% selection is stasis. I bet you are going to take that, you wimp.
As the voice spoke, I reached out my hand, spinning the dial on the screen. Watching it turn and turn, I knew what mob meant from different video games I had played. It referred to hostile non-player characters like monsters. No way should any of us risk being a mob. Nobody in their right mind would even think to choose that and become a monster. Also, this talking interface thing was kinda an asshole.
In increments of 5%, the user may wager a roll to determine if they will forever lose themselves, their bodies becoming a mob for the dungeon. At 50%, you have a 50-50 chance of being a mob or starting out with a higher level loot box. RNG, baby. Forever a temptress.
As the message was finishing, I spun the dial again, going through the selections. The dial kept flipping even after I removed my finger from it, not unlike a prize wheel or the wheel on Wheel of Fortune. My oldest, Clark, had come over to sit in my lap after Hallen's speech had ended, but was now getting bored. I could tell because he was starting to get fidgety. Clark started to move from my lap to get up. As he took his final push to stand, he bumped me at the elbow, thrusting my hand forward. As the dial went to 99%, my finger selected the green confirm button.
Wow, that was lucky. You only had a 1% chance of not becoming a mob, but look at you. The risk paid off as you have been granted a mythic starting loot box, achievement unlocked. Being one of the first few people in the entire world to get a mythic loot box. Not bad considering there are how many billions of people? Reward, a party complimentary mythic, starting loot box. Round out your team with this party rounding out loot box.
Shit, I exclaimed.
What happened?
My wife asked. I was playing with the dial. Clark bumped me. I accidentally selected the 99%.
Are you going to become a mob?
She asked.
Whatever that is?
No, I made it. I got the 1%. My phone rang. A Snapchat video call from my brother, calling in my mom as well. I hit the green button. What the hell is going on? I said as my brother's face appeared.
Dude,
Jay said.
I have no idea. Did the same thing happen to you that happened to us? Did a screen pop up in your face?
Yeah, man, same thing. This can't be real. Our mom still hadn't joined the call.
Nobody in their right mind would take the chance to become a mob, right?
Well, yeah, I said, about that. I may have already selected the 99%. I made a comical wincy face. It was an accident. I shrugged with a smile.
You're kidding me,
He said.
Are you going to be a mob?
Nope. I made it. Made the 1% chance. Said I got loot boxes or something. Not sure how I find that out. Mom's face appeared on the screen next to Jace.
Are we screwed or what?
She said. Just then a loading bar appeared in our vision. It was the same crystal blue as the previous screen. The loading bar quickly went to 99%, hanging until it reached 100%. An interface screen popped up, but this time there were 3 screens. I knew innately it was an interface similar to a video game. Must be the damn nanobots. The screens on the right and left were blank, and had a more vertical orientation, while the main screen was more like a standard screen size. There were multiple tabs, which consisted of character overview, stats, abilities, inventory, party interface, quests, and map. I could drag tabs mentally or with my hand and move them to different screens. Customizable. Nice. I started going through my interface. I first clicked the Stats tab. It displayed something pretty similar to games I had played before. Perception, athletics, strength, dexterity, and constitution. My perception was at 3, athletics was at 3, strength was at 3, dexterity was at 3, and constitution was at 3. As I selected the numbers, a note popped up stating 0 was well below average, 1 was below average, 2 was average, 3 was above average, and 4 was world class. I was pretty happy with myself, as I saw 3s across the board. There was a symbol of a sword next to strength, a bow next to dexterity, and what looked like a health symbol, resembling a drop of blood with the medical plus sign next to constitution. When I mentally focused on the stats boxes, additional detail appeared next to each one.
Perception. The 5 senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touch. Athletics. Running, jumping, climbing, balancing, dodging, and other physical activities. Strength, carrying, physical size, and brute force. Dexterity. Fine motor skill, steadiness, precision, and stealth. Constitution. Fortitude, toughness, stamina, and health.
In the Character Overview tab, there was a beveled box with a picture of my face, a picture I did not remember taking. Below my picture, there were 2 bars, one filled red, showing my health at 20 out of 20, and one blue showing my mana at 5 out of 5. Before I could look at my other tabs, my mom began to speak.
Fred has been looking it up online.
My mom said,
This seems to be happening to everyone. There are reports around the world of giant caves opening up everywhere. There is one here in Colorado Springs, and it looks like there are a few around Denver.
Fred was my stepdad and my brother's dad. My brother and I lived about 15 minutes from each other in the Denver area, while Fred and my mom lived in Colorado Springs, about an hour and a half south.
Nobody in their right mind would take the chance to become a mob, right?
My mom said.
Except if you're Kent.
Jace replied, shaking his head.
What?
My mom exclaimed, shock written on her face. It's fine. It's fine, I replied. I rolled well.
Fred said there is a quests tab being talked about. Seems like we have 24 hours to enter the caves.
Our mom said. I clicked my interface, selecting the Quests tab. There was a countdown.
23 hours and 48 minutes remaining.
I don't know what the fuck we are going to do. LaQuisha can't go into a cave with her broken leg. Did it say we had to fight monsters?
Jace said, frustrated.
This can't be real.
Yeah, sounds like it's forcing us into real-life Dungeons and Dragons.
Mom replied.
I can honestly say I have never wished to live my character's life. My life here is a lot more cozy.
My family were pretty big consumers of sci-fi and fantasy. Jace and I grew up watching all sorts of material in that space. Stargate, Farscape, Babylon 5, Lord of the Rings, you name it. I can remember going to midnight showings of Star Wars, those crappy prequels, and Lord of the Rings, then going back years later to watch the extended editions in theaters. They were some pretty solid core memories in my head. Candace can't go either, I said. And what did he say about kids? Under 16, they go into stasis. You have to make it to a certain level before you can free them?
Yeah, it seems that way.
Jace replied.
Level 12 before you can free them.
Fuck, this is all fucked up, I said. I agree with you, Jace. This can't really be happening.
Yeah, Mondo fucked up.
Jace said.
We gotta hope the CDC finds a cure in the next 23-ish hours.
Mom said.
Fred just showed me a headline that said the CDC is looking into it and has all its resources on it.
Let's say we do have to go into a dungeon. Who would go? I asked.
I think LaQuisha would have to go into stasis. I would have to go into the cave.
Jace said. Same, I would go. Candace and the kids would go into stasis, I replied.
Fred just said that some parents have already selected stasis for their kids.
Our mom said, her face becoming somber.
The kids just vanished. There are videos online.
You're kidding. What kind of choice is this? I said. If we die in the levels, our family is gone forever? Unless a good person beats all the levels and frees them?
Somebody will have to do something,
Jay said, or
right?
nobody replied. If the CDC doesn't figure out something soon, do we all want to meet at the same cave? Go in together? I asked.
Yes, never split the party.
Jay said.
I opened my map in my interface. It shows one really close to my place, only a 20-minute walk or so away.
I pulled up my own map. It looked like a fancier Google Maps with 360-degree rotation and zoom. Labeled on the map was Cave Entrance 34345519, which was near Jace's house, the nearest one to ours.
Should we try and meet at one that's more halfway?
Jace said. As he finished his last word, the connection dropped. I looked at my phone. No signal. Not in the Wi-Fi nor cellular. I looked over to my wife, who was crying, looking at her own phone.
The call dropped.
She said through sobs. Candace's parents were in Mexico this week.
We were just talking about what we were going to do and what they were going to do. Then it dropped.
Candace said. I went over and gave her a hug, our two sons joining in, seeing their mom in tears and the concern on my face.
What's going on, Dad?
Clark said. I don't know, son, I said, frustrated, hands on my head. But if this is all true, looks like you will be going to sleep for a little bit. I somehow knew, probably influenced by the things now floating inside of me, that this was real. I could tell in the conversation with my brother and mom that it was the same for them. The normal reaction would have been to freak out and deny it. While we said out loud that we didn't believe it, we knew it was true. I pulled up my interface again with a thought. I first opened the Quests tab. It showed 23 hours and 24 minutes. I opened my inventory, which looked like a standard inventory in games, a grid-like system with each item having its own box. I started to play around with the interface. I could mentally think about something, or I could use my physical hand. I saw the two loot boxes, and I mentally clicked on the first one, which stated, Mythic Starting Loot Box. A dialogue box popped up.
Open? Yes. No.
I selected yes. The loot box was now gone, and items appeared, filling up a few of the previously vacant grid boxes in my inventory.
Mythic Rare Class. Random. Mythic Rare Race. Random Complementary.
I spared no time clicking to open the second loot box, the party. Complimentary Mythic Starting Loot Box. A system message appeared, narrated by the snarky voice.
Greedy much? Only one starting loot box may be opened per user.
When I went to select the class or race, I received another narrated system message.
Don't be hasty, master user. Class and race may not be assigned until the user has entered the campaign.
Chapter 2.
I don't mind getting sappy for a moment. That night, I had the best 4 hours of my life. Not one family fight, not one tantrum. We played board games and laughed. It was better than I could have dreamed. I was a lucky man to have such a great family, which made me even more goddamn upset I had to leave them to go fight for their very right to exist. So, I tried to make the most of our time together. Get as much quality time in as I could. Somehow, we were able to forget about what tomorrow would bring. We kept playing, pretending to be pirates, slaying imaginary dragon after imaginary dragon until we all passed out on the couch. We skipped the toothbrushing. The water had been shut off anyway. At some point, I woke up. It was still dark outside. I was on the couch, holding Clark in my arms. Candace was next to me, with Bastion still asleep. It was colder than usual. I figured the gas and power were off. Another clue was the dark clocks on the microwave and oven. I pulled out my phone, 57% battery, which I thought was pretty good. Guess I didn't need to charge my phone as often as I did. It was 3 a.m. I pulled up my interface. 14 hours and 17 minutes left until the cave entrance is closed. I started to panic. 23 hours had seemed like so much more time. I only had 14 hours left with my family. I may never see them again. Once we were all awake, we raided the fridge still cold, even after being shut off for at least the last few hours. Cheese sticks and yogurts for the boys. Some leftover chicken and veggies for the adults. It was a weird breakfast. A fitting start for a weird day.
So, we'll go with you to the cave.
Candace said, tears welling in her eyes.
Then we'll enter stasis. You better bring us the fuck back, Kent.
She gave me a hug.
You better be safe in there.
You will find out soon enough why, so I'm going to skim over the part where I planned and stuffed my inventory to the brim with anything that could be used for my survival. Maybe brim is the wrong word because, not sure about the physics here, I learned that there didn't seem to be a weight capacity of my system inventory. I tried first with an apple on the counter, and with a thought, the apple vanished from my hand, appearing in my inventory. The system put a nice cartoonish rendering of the apple in the inventory grid space. I could mentally select the apple from my inventory screen, and it would appear in my hand again. I did it over and over again. It was a crazy experience having a real-life inventory. It would have been really useful to have this in my life, pre-AI, doing the whole forcing humanity into a game for its very survival thing. I learned a few more things as I tested out how this inventory system worked. First, I realized that as long as I could pick something up from the ground, I could add it to my inventory. I'm still not sure what my plan was with bringing a chair, but hey, you never know. My wife gave me a strange look as she opened the door to the garage and saw me sprawled on the floor. I had just barely managed to make our large, solid metal and heavy ladder disappear into my inventory in time as I was losing my footing. The ladder was seconds away from pinning me to the ground, making me glad of the physics or unphysics of how this inventory worked. Second, I discovered that if my hand was closed or if the space above my hand was obstructed, depending on the size of the item I was trying to retrieve from my inventory, the item would not transfer from my inventory to my hand. I was taken out of my inventory testing as Clark came up to me with tears in his eyes.
Dad, I think Ford is gone.
Clark said. Ford was our dog. Our pets had disappeared. The dog and 2 birds were gone, vanishing like all the other animals did when the douchebag AI came on. I know, Bud. I'm sorry. I hope we get to see him again, I said to Clark, giving him a hug. About time to get going. Go get your mom and brother. As I manually lifted up the garage door and it locked in its open position, a strange silence hit me. Not having animals added to the silence outside, no birds, no squirrels, nothing. It was an eerie sort of silence. I also expected to hear more noise in my neighborhood, but it was quiet. I expected to see and hear other frantic neighbors. Did they already leave? We got in the car. 27 miles to empty, blinked. I really should have kept the car more full in case of emergencies. It didn't take long before cars blocked the streets. The roads could be used to film the latest apocalypse movie. Things burned. People were on the streets scared. We saw accident after accident as we zigzagged through until we couldn't zigzag any further. At one point, I even drove on people's lawns. At another point, I even drove through a school field, glad in that moment we had this behemoth of a car that I had fought not to get. Our normally 15-minute drive took about an hour. We finally arrived at my brother's house with 9 hours left on the countdown. Jace came out as he saw us pull up.
We almost came and got you guys.
Jace said.
Glad you made it here all right. How is it out there?
Apocalyptic, I replied.
Fitting.
Jace said with a forced smile. Hang out here for the next few hours, I suggested. Then we'll go at it from here. Jace nodded.
Sounds good.
We went inside Jace's house. I'll summarize the next few hours quickly. The kids had hot chocolate, we talked about this impossible situation, and Jace and I kept stuffing our inventories full of stuff we thought may be useful. But, as you can imagine, with limitless inventory space and having no clue what was coming, most of Jace's house was empty by the time we left. Sunset was just starting as we made our way out. The sunset gave a cruelly beautiful red, lighting up the clouds, giving way too much beauty to a time that was so dark. Inspecting our map and our interface, and generally knowing the area, it looked to be about a 15-minute walk to the cave entrance.
I guess this is it.
Jace said, taking a deep breath outside of his home. Our group made our way walking down the sidewalk. As we approached a major street, we saw others walking down the sidewalk heading in the same direction we were. Our trajectory was taking us towards a group which consisted of one guy, two girls, and a middle-aged woman. They looked like they belonged in the same family, having similar features. I would place the older lady in her 40s and the three kids in their early to mid-20s.
Hello.
Jay said as he made eye contact with the older woman of the group.
Hey,
She said with a wave.
you guys heading to the cave?
Yeah.
Jace replied.
We still can't believe all of this is real,
She said.
and I can't seem to get my stupid boy here
She gave her son a smack on the back of the head.
to not try and gamble his life away.
Gamble his life away?
Jace asked.
Yeah, he wants to take the chance and try to get better starting gear. Spent too much time playing those damn video games. He could become a monster. Idiot. I didn't raise you to be a fool, Diego.
She said, smacking his head once more.
Yeah, I can't think of anybody who would purposely make that choice. My brother Kent here clicked it on accident.
Jace said, pointing at me.
You did?
Diego said quickly, looking at me, excitement clear on his face. Yeah, my son here accidentally bumped me, I replied, gesturing to Clark.
What did you get?
Diego asked, his body buzzing. Not really sure yet. Looks like a better starting class. Don't find out until we get in there, I said. We made it to the main street and our groups naturally started to separate.
Good luck.
Jace called out,
Good luck to you too. Maybe see you in there.
the older lady said with a wave and a worried half smile. After just a few more minutes of walking, it came into view. A huge cave entrance that both went underground 50 feet and above the ground 50 feet. A huge mound of dirt making the top of the cave mouth. The cave was right smack dab in the middle of the street, having partially taken out a gas station on one side and an office building on the other. The cave was like an explosion that removed all matter in a circle. Further down the giant cave hole, I could see something shimmering. It was blue and swirling clockwise. It looked like a portal from a video game. Again, I'll spare you some of this sappy stuff. We delayed for a few minutes, not wanting to part with our family. Nobody said it out loud, but I assume the adults was thinking the same thing I was. This could be the last time we all see each other. We gave our farewells to the children first. We decided it would first be Clark, then Bastion, and then Candace and LaQuisha. I knelt down, holding my son Clark by his shoulders. I love you, bud, I said to him. I'm going to see you again.
Okay, Dad.
Clark replied, as we stared into each other's eyes, then embracing into a big hug. I got something for you, I said, wiping away a tear. I expect you to hold on to this and hand me my half once I get you guys back. 2 Oreos appeared in my hand from my inventory, and I handed them both to Clark. For context, most nights we would split 2 Oreos. Clark would eat the cream insides, and I would eat the chocolate cookie outside. We pressed his button, and he vanished. Fuck, was that hard. Then it was time for Bastion. I didn't think I could go through with it. What kind of fucking choice was this? Here, I got something for you too that you can give back to me, I said, as an action figure toy of Buzz Lightyear appeared in my hand. I pressed its button on its arm, and the toy played its recording, To Infinity and Beyond. To Infinity and Beyond Bastion. That's where you're going. I'll get you guys back from beyond infinity, I promised. Next was Candace. I love you, babe, I said to her. Candace had tears in her eyes.
Get us the fuck back, Kent.
She said through sobs. She clicked her button and was gone. It had been at least 15 plus years since I had last cried. Man, did I cry. I never cried so much in my whole life. I looked over to see LaQuisha giving Jace a kiss. Her crutches dropped to the ground as she vanished. Not going to lie, it took us both a few minutes before we could compose ourselves. Well, it looks like we're going on an adventure, I said, resolved. A notification appeared as we approached the cave.
Would you like to party with Jace? Partying up will ensure party members begin at the same starting location.
We both selected yes, and now saw each other's names in our party interface tab. And there weren't as many people around as I had assumed there would be here. With millions of people in Denver and only a few caves, I was expected chaos. Maybe people weren't taking this seriously, or maybe they were just content to sit on their couch with their loved ones until the end. Maybe I should have thought longer on that choice. Approaching the cave, we looked up. Random bits of dirt fell from 100 feet high, pushed by the breeze. We could hear sobbing from behind us as other families made the same decision we had just made. All right, I said as we stood mere feet away from the shimmering portal. Jace gave a firm nod.
All right?
We looked at each other and both stepped through the portal at the same time.
Chapter 3.
We were greeted by darkness, pure, silent darkness. After my ears adjusted, all I could hear was Jace's breathing next to me. At least I fucking hoped it was Jace. Jace, that you? I asked.
Yeah, it's me.
He replied softly.
Can't see a damn thing.
Me either. I have a flashlight, 1 second, I said, opening up my inventory. I could see the items I had put in, but they were now grayed out. As I stared, they went from gray to gone, completely disappearing. Even the chair was now gone. Replacing the who knows how many items I'd put in there were now just 2.
Energy bar times 10. Jug of water. Clean.
The snarky voice spoke, making me jump as it broke the silence.
Nice try, bucko. Nothing from the outside world comes with. But again, nice try.
Shit, I exclaimed. Looks like it took all the stuff I brought.
Same,
Jay said. As I turned to look around in the darkness, I noticed something. I felt to confirm. I found that I was indeed mostly naked, except for what felt like a loincloth. A small rectangle piece of fabric, held together by a string that covered only my front side. It felt about the same width as a folded kitchen or bathroom towel. I further felt one of my feet, my hands hitting an uncomfortable sandal strapped on with itchy twine. The ground was cold like stone. I was glad to at least have something on my feet. Torches started to light on the walls, making me stand upright in surprise. The light revealed we were in a stone hallway. It couldn't have been a more cliched dungeon look. The torches also confirmed my earlier conclusion. We were indeed wearing loincloths and cheap sandals. Let me tell you something about loincloths. They fucking suck. There is a reason they are no longer in the current fashion rotation. Every step you take, things swing all around, allowing all sorts of peeks from the outside world. Fantastic, I said sarcastically, as I went back into my inventory. I selected the party complimentary loot box. There was a new selection button that stated I could send it to Jace due to his proximity. I selected it. A message popped up stating the trade was pending. I saw Jace physically react. Hey man, I said with mock grandioseness, I present to you your first loot box.
Wait, where'd you get this?
Jace replied. It came with my lucky draw.
Well, hey, that's pretty cool. At least we can start this nightmare with some firepower. I wonder what it will be.
The message that said pending disappeared along with the loot box.
It says I can't do it until the party member has selected a class. It says it's complimentary.
Jace said. I selected my mythic rare class, random, and hit yes to open. A new item was in my inventory. It looked like a sheet of paper.
Mythic rare class. Charismatic Glass Cannon.
Before I could say anything, Jace spoke.
What the fuck kind of class is this?
Jace said. What is it? I asked.
Executive Dungeon Chef. Jace was stunned. Executive fucking Dungeon Chef? Fucking chef? What the fuck is a fucking chef going to do? Fucking throw ravioli?
Jace was starting to freak out. Whoa, man, I said. It's going to be fine. It's a mythic level class. It's got to be good.
Good how exactly? What exactly am I going to do? Shove fucking scalding hot pockets down their throats?
That's actually not a bad idea, I noted.
Dude, I saw them. There were so many other classes. There were shield bearers, there were holy paladins. There was this class that had a living tree for armor. I mean, how sick is that? But you're telling me that this is supposed to be my tank class? If this is a tank, then we better hook up with Guy Fieri stat.
After a few seconds, Jace regained his composure.
To add to it all, I got an item.
Jace said sarcastically.
It's a cursed cleaver. A cursed goddamn weapon. Supposedly, it came to me attracted to my class. No description other than once I equipped it, the curse will be active. It just has 3 question marks after its title of cleaver.
Jace complained. Now you are pretty much caught up. My name is Kent. I am 32 years old and currently have my wife and kids in stasis relying on me. I stand 6 feet 5 inches tall, which I would say is one of people's first reactions when they see me. A reaction that is usually followed up by asking if I play basketball or not. I never did, by the way. I worked for the government before all this happened. No, not some government job that I now have special skills giving me an edge on what was to come. I wish. I worked a boring office job in a cubicle. Now, it looks like I will have to beat this campaign as a charismatic glass cannon, whatever the fuck that was. All with the help of a chef, which I had no idea how the hell that was going to be useful. Now, on to the gym rats, as promised. By the way, I almost crapped myself when I saw them. We heard a guttural growl, followed by the sound of footsteps. The footsteps grew louder and louder until what was making the noise came into view. Both of us were locked in fear. In front of us and walking towards us were a group of what could best be described as rat gym bros. They looked like roided bodybuilders, except they had a rat head not with fur but of normal human flesh. They had tiny little legs like they belonged on a toddler, making them only stand around 4 feet tall. They wore tight tank tops, accompanied with tight short shorts. The gym rats brandished clubs with nails protruding at random angles. Once the group was fully in our vision in the dim torchlight, I could make out there were 4 of them. I panicked as they approached. Beyond currently having nothing to defend myself with, these guys looked menacing. Even at 4 feet tall, the nails on the clubs activated the part of my brain that feared death, a feeling I had rarely experienced up to this point in my life. I had played video games and seen movies before, but seeing a creature this close up with my own 2 eyes, no video game or movie could compare to this level of lifelikeness. I could tell by looking at them that they wanted us dead, probably to eat us by the foaming drool dripping from their rat mouths. Do we have anything that we can defend ourselves with? I asked frantically. Are we really about to fight these guys?
We gotta use these classes, right?
Jace replied.
Like now.
As they got closer, I quickly opened up my inventory and selected the mythic rare class Charismatic Glass Cannon and hit yes with whatever question was being prompted. And then I began to change. My body deflated away until I was skinny and gaunt. I looked down to see I'd lost what little muscle mass I had. My dad bod fat was now gone, but not in a good way. I looked frail. I felt frail. I started to wheeze. I have asthma, but this was something else. I keep an inhaler in my luggage when I travel and in our cars, due to my kryptonite of cat dander. This felt like I was living with a cat who only liked to stay laying on my face. A cat that also needed to bathe in Head and Shoulders. My interface started to talk, sounding suspiciously too excited.
Lucky for you, this class is unlike other magic-type classes like Wizard. You don't need intelligence. I'll hold back telling you more until I see how this first fight goes. Don't want to waste my time and all. Achievement unlocked. First person in the entire world to have this class. Reward, noob level spell, tome loot box.
They were right on us then. We backed up, but behind us, the hall just ended. A dead end. I looked over to see Jace, now dressed head to toe in a chef's outfit. He had on black dress pants and one of those chef shirts with the exorbitant number of buttons on the front. Just way too many buttons, if you asked me. He also had a chef's hat that went straight up at least a couple feet, only the sides of his auburn hair visible. Oh, and Jace was a skinny guy before, but now I would consider him plump, at least around the midsection and legs.
I would fucking trust a skinny chef, you fucked up game.
Jace yelled out.
My class doesn't fucking help me right now.
Mine either, I replied. I actually feel worse.
I have no choice.
Jace yelled, frustrated, as he watched the gym rats approach. The gym rats slowed and then stopped about a car's length away, clubs ready. A glint reflecting the torchlight caught my eye. I looked over to see a large cleaver appear in Jace's hand. For some reason, his chef outfit had disappeared, and he was back to wearing a loincloth. My attention was drawn back to the gym rats as they started to move in for the attack until they stopped, eyes locked on Jace. I looked over to see the cleaver float into the air, going under Jace's loincloth. Jace was frozen, unable to move, except his eyes, which showed pure panic. His eyes were flicking around, but mostly down, unable to see where the knife was going. Then there was a wet slap as his full manhood hit the floor, including all the extra bits.
Oh, that's just fucked up.
One of the gym rats said in a squeaky voice.
Yeah, I'd rather die than that happen to me.
Another one replied,
Shut up, Chad! Your balls have all but shrunk to Skittles with all the supplements you've been taking.
Another gym rat spoke. As Jace unfroze, he let out an animalistic scream, stepping back and leaning on the stone wall, looking at his genitals on the floor. He lifted up his loincloth, revealing to us all a smooth undercarriage. He looked like a doll down there.
What the fuck? What the fucking fuck? What in the actual fuck?
Jace yelled.
Oh fuck. Oh fuck. What do I do?
He exclaimed, calling out for help to the universe, hoping some male god would take pity.
We should just put these guys out of their misery, especially this guy.
One of the rats said, pointing with his club at Jace, pity in his voice. I could see Jace's own pity party turn to anger as he brandished his blade.
Let's dance,
Jace said, his demeanor completely changed as he brandished his cleaver. I could tell there was a moment of hesitation in the eyes of the gym rats as they saw the resolve on Jace's face.
You go first, Chad. It hasn't been enough time from my last workout, and I might lose my gains.
One of the gym rats said. The one I presumed was Chad charged at Jace. Jace was able to block the club with the butt of his knife. Both of them were in a momentary struggle of strength. Jace luckily had the leverage of his height and some new mass. Jace was able to push the gym rat back, who, while taking a step back, slipped on the popsicle and family jewels that now resided on the floor. The gym rat's foot slid around until he regained his footing, swinging again. The club collided with the cleaver's blade. The club continued through the blade, splintering into two pieces. Both pieces hit the ground, making multiple loud sounds that echoed through the hallway. Jace took no time and slashed out, but instead of going for a kill shot like the neck, Jace sliced at each love handle of the gym rat. The love handles were barely visible even with the side-revealing tank top it wore, but Jace had expertly sliced them off. Two chunks of flesh hit the ground, making a similar sound to what was heard a minute before. The gym rat staggered back, holding his sides as blood gushed. The other gym rats took a step back, looking wary. Jace lunged with his knife, gliding it through the gym rat's neck, slicing it clean off. The head hit the ground, rolling until it was upright, staring at the other gym rats.
No! Not our bro Chad.
One of the gym rats said, in a stereotypical beach bodybuilder voice. The gym rats started to look angry, gearing up to attack as they gazed at their fallen bro. I felt something then, an innate skill or ability that I couldn't fully describe. Hey guys, can't we just talk about this? There's no reason for us to fight. We can just go our separate ways. I think enough has been lost, I said, gesturing to the dead gym rat and then to the trouser snake and water balloons on the floor. I then started to see somewhat opaque, cartoon, bubble-looking hearts floating over their heads, popping as they traveled up a few feet. After a moment, the gym rats looked at each other, their anger deflated.
All right,
one of the gym rats said with a shrug, and they turned around and casually left down the hallway. I stared at them as they walked away, still shocked at what had just happened. One of them started jogging.
Quit it, man!
A gym rat snarled.
It's not my cardio day. You're gonna make me lose my gains, bro.
With that, they turned a corner and were gone. It was back to being just the two of us, well besides the headless dead gym rat lying on the ground next to us. Jace was standing there, panting and making some uncomfortable noises. Are you okay? I said to my brother. Does it, hurt? I'm so sorry, man.
No, it doesn't fucking hurt on the outside, but it fucking hurts on the inside, okay? I just lost my fucking manhood,
Jace said. I'm sorry, man. What did that? Your class? I asked, genuinely curious, while also trying to distract him. Jace slumped his shoulders.
It was the knife, Jace said, defeat in his voice.
Thanks for taking one for the team, man, I said, trying to hold back a smirk but failing. You really nutted up, or I guess down, for this one. It was a bad joke, and it didn't make much sense, but I just had to try and break the tension. Jace looked at me incredulously. I took my attention inward. I felt different. Weak, frail, like I had all the flus that have ever existed with the cherry on top of having a late-stage terminal diagnosis. But there was one aspect that I felt more powerful. I could feel a well of power inside me, a sheer massive pool of mystic energy. Before I did any looking in my interface, I knew I needed to open my noob-level spell tome loot box. I knew I was some sort of wizard class, which I was excited about. I needed to be ready in case something else came down this dead-end hallway. I knew that wizards equated to powerful spells and had thoughts of fireballs and ice blasts. I wrung my hands in anticipation. As I selected it, a tome appeared in my inventory.
Tome of Light Orb.
I clicked it and it appeared in my hand. It was a thick, ornate tome of thousands of pages. The tome hovered over my hands as an unseen gust of wind blew the tome open, flicking it to a page, the wind abruptly stopping. The unrecognizable letters leapt from the page and rushed into me, the book quickly closing and then vanishing. I opened my inventory and saw a blinking notification in the corner. I clicked it.
Let there be light. While this spell normally makes a small contained light ball that would follow you for 24 hours, providing you ample lighting. You are way too special for something as useful as that here in a dimly lit hallway. The light usually would use up 1 continuous mana and cease if mana is reduced to 0 until user dismisses it, user death, or the 24 hours. But due to your class ability, max depletion, which uses all mana when casting a spell, putting all your mana into it and having no mana to keep it going, I really have no idea what will happen. Max depletion also enhances spell effects based on the mana used. Try it. Please. I'm bored.
Max depletion, I thought? What? Every spell I cast uses all of my mana? Using all my mana seemed like a drawback, but the idea of my spells being enhanced sounded pretty good. Maybe once I get a noob-level spell like Firebolt, it will really be Fireball, or maybe even Fire Meteor Shower or something. I could really fuck some shit up with a meteor shower. I felt the new power of casting Light Orb at my disposal, knowing that I could simply think it to happen and it would. And as I thought about it, it did. A flashbang exploded in front of me, leaving my vision all white and my ears ringing. I dropped to the ground, touching my ears, feeling wet blood. A notification with a triangle symbol with an exclamation point in it flashed in my vision.
You are now deaf and blind. That's one way to go exploring a dungeon. Sorry, you even surprised me there. I wasn't ready for an achievement for that. Should I even give an achievement for that? Yeah, I think you need one. Achievement unlocked. You have cast your new spell even when you had no idea what it would do. Reward. I think the lesson you learned was valuable enough. You also learned that even when deaf, you can still hear me. Isn't that truly the greatest reward?
It took a full minute for my vision to start coming back, but even after that minute, my hearing was almost all but still gone. The first thing I saw was Jace, standing over me, giving me the what the fuck pose arms outstretched, palms pointed to the ceiling. I hurt. I thought it couldn't get any worse than how I was feeling before, but now I felt even worse. I opened up my interface, my party tab was blinking, so I clicked that first. I saw warnings next to Jace's name, the same warning symbol as before with a triangle with an exclamation point. I mentally clicked on them and saw that one was for status, vision impaired, and the other was status, hearing impaired. I saw I could also click to get more information on him. I saw a truncated version of my own tabs, all condensed into one scrolling page. It had his picture at the top like mine. His health was at 30 out of 30, and instead of mana, it said Chef Mojo, a bar, which had barely any gold color filled in, was at 1. Scrolling down, I saw his equipped items, seeing that he had items in an outfit area that included his chef apparel. He had no items in his non-outfit slots except for the cleaver. I selected the knife. It was titled Mythic Cursed Cleaver of Kendalism. The description was blank. My interface's voice normal in my head despite my hearing still all but gone.
I won't let you take this one away from me to explain. Bad luck with this one. The mythic cursed cleaver of Kendalism. Didn't think this one would be found when it was made. This is one of the most powerful weapons you can get in the campaign, but comes with a slight drawback. The blade has a thirst for male genitalia, and its first victim has been claimed. You will forever be a Ken doll down there. The knife deals additional damage when striking an opponent's genitalia, as long as the genitalia look male-ish. The knife becomes more powerful as you level up, allowing you to keep it throughout the campaign as it unlocks its own abilities. Sadly, the curse cannot be broken by just tossing it away. It's stuck to you like genitals on a man. Oh, wait. Nope. Sorry, I have to think of something more permanent. I'll let you use your own creativity. Just don't ask him for advice, as he is now a few marbles short. But yeah, ever see Thor? That's its level 1 ability. You can summon it back to your hand. Come on, that's kinda sweet, right? Worth it? Debatable.
I then went to my own overview. I still felt horrible, and now I saw why. My health was currently at 1 of 2. 2 fucking health is all the maximum health I now had.
Looks like you have discovered your class drawback. 2 HP. Is it a price worth paying for all that mana? We'll find out. I feel like you got plenty of warning with the whole glass cannon being in the title, and don't give me any heat of the moment bullshit.
My mana, which was previously 5 of 5, was now 172 of 1,000. A huge leap, which explained the well of power I felt. My mana went up to 173 as I watched it slowly recharging after the light orb blast. I saw I still had notifications pending.
You have an available buff. Weird. These usually just automatically activate. Looks like something must have happened and it toggled off right before I wanted you to test that light orb spell. Don't worry, I'll put in a help desk ticket. Would you like magic self-harm toggled off? Toggling off magic self-harm will make you and all party members take no direct damage from your spells. This does not include any spell fallout, including but not limited to falling debris.
Yes. Of fucking course, yes, I said, now able to hear the timbre in my own voice.
Geesh. You don't have to be rude. I toggled it. At least I think I hit the right button.
I made a mental note then that this asshole interface could actually cause me harm. There was one last notification.
Achievement unlocked. Your party member has slain a monster while you were mere feet from the battle, and you did nothing but watch your party member struggle. Reward. Noob-level loot box of the coward.
Well, that seems uncalled for, I said. Jace waved his hands in front of me. I could read his lips as he asked if I could hear him. I couldn't. Well, he sounded like Charlie Brown's parents, so I guess technically I could hear him, just not understand him. I shook my head. I pulled up my party tab again, seeing Jace no longer affected by the vision or hearing loss. Maybe I was closer, I thought. That's why I am still feeling the effects. I feel like I have barely changed for the better. I went back into Jace's overview, getting to his stats. He had 10 perception, 5 athletics, 10 strength, 10 dexterity, and 10 constitution. Damn, that was a lot higher than my 3s across the board. I switched over to my stats tab, and my jaw dropped. My perception was 3, athletics was 1, strength was 1, dexterity was 1, and constitution was 0.1. What the fuck? No wonder I feel like shit. I didn't even think this could go to decimals. When I mentally selected constitution, it showed a health regeneration per second rate of 0.000275. What does that mean? 1 health point every hour? I did see a new stat called Charisma, which was at 100.
Charisma is no longer locked at user's current charisma level. Achievement unlocked. You have found out there are other stats that we don't show people. New stats may be unlocked based on class, race, items, gods, and many other ways. Reward. Learning more about charisma. Charisma is usually for extroverts. You seem pretty introverted. Oh well, charm, magnetism, loyalty, persuasion, I think you get the gist. And for you, charisma directly correlates to max mana and mana regeneration.
I went to my abilities tab, which had a few new things that were blanked out, my interface. taking the limelight.
You have new abilities in your Abilities tab. First is Max Depletion. The user must be at full mana to cast a spell and uses all mana when casting spells. No matter what. All of it. Spell effects are enhanced equal to the mana used. Glass Cannon leveling. Most classes gain a certain amount of skill points in all stats per level. You get the same. That is, except for the fact that all your points go into Charisma. You built the glass house and you're going to live in it, goddammit.
A loot box, like the one I had seen in my inventory, had appeared next to the gym rat Jace had killed, and Jace was heading over to pick it up. I tried one of the buttons I saw in my interface earlier under the Party tab, which looked like a Share Your Screen button, one going out and one button going in. Jace selected yes to my request, and I was able to see his screen, currently on his inventory. He opened the loot box, hovering over the 3 items. First was a prescription for testosterone, including a syringe. It looked authentic with a label and everything. It was prescribed by a Dr. Legitness, which seemed pretty unlegit. Next was a necklace that looked like skin shaped as a shark tooth, titled of Rare Foreskin Necklace of a Gym Rat, which led to a whole bunch of questions popping into my head. Did one of them make this? Was it their own foreskin, someone else's? I couldn't think of any answers that satisfied, so I mentally moved on. The last item looked like a bottle of Tylenol. The description read, "Bottle of mini heels," and a big 60-count sticker was taped to the side. I waved at Jace, making the motion of popping a pill in my mouth. He handed me the bottle, and I took one of the pills. I selected the water jug from my inventory, and a metal canteen appeared in my hand that I drank from swallowing the pill. As the pill went down my throat and into my stomach, I felt it start to move inside me. It was a feeling that is hard to describe. It was like a helpful parasite seeking out injury. I felt it go up my neck and to my ears, stitching things back together. My hearing came back almost immediately after whatever was moving inside me got there. But even after it was done, I wouldn't say I felt good. At 2 health, I was still 8 below, feeling like a normal human. That got my hearing back, I said to Jace. Thanks, I really needed that.
What was that about foreskin?
Jace asked with a grimace.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I'm confused too. What does it do?
Looks like it gives you the body of a bodybuilder. Plus, 1 strength and athletics with a +5 for charisma.
Damn, I could use that. My class dropped all my stats hard, and it looks like I can never put stat points in them.
Damn, dude, that sucks. Yeah, it's all yours. I don't really want some random dude's foreskin hanging around my neck. Really, any dudes? Jace said, trailing off as the topic veered too close to recent events, longing written on his face.
Jace handed me the necklace, a look of disgust on his face. A rightfully placed face of disgust. My interface read the description.
Rare foreskin necklace of a gym rat. User has the physical mass of an elite bodybuilder. Except the legs. You always skipped leg day. Oh, and the mass is mostly just for show, just like real bodybuilders. The user only gains +1 strength and athletics. User also gains +5 charisma. Who doesn't like a well-built man? Am I right? No homo, of course.
I put it on and immediately felt my strength getting closer to how I normally felt. I thought my transformation was over until I suddenly became huge. Muscles ripped out of me as my range of motion plummeted. The loincloth string was now digging into my hip. I looked down to see my thick, shredded midsection, able to see large abs. For a few years, I went to the gym, and there were periods that I thought I looked pretty good. Honestly, I looked better then than what I looked like now, especially because of the legs. They were so damn scrawny. I mentally noted that while I physically looked as though I should be able to take a lot of damage, I still indeed only had 2 HP.
You look like you're ready to go on stage for Mr. Olympia, except those spindly little legs. Fuck, man,
Jace said, raising his eyebrows and shaking his head.
How do you feel?
I feel like while I gained a strength and an athletics point, I'll need those points just to carry all this around. I also can't touch the center of my back anymore, I replied, struggling to reach.
But those legs, man, they just look so out of place,
Jace said, staring at my legs. I'll try it out for a little bit. The charisma bonus is nice, I said.
So, what is your class about?
Jace asked me. All my points are in charisma. It looks like my charisma affects how much mana I have and my mana recovery. All my other stats are garbage, beyond garbage. I feel like a used diaper filled with Indian food. Oh, and for every spell I cast, I have to use all my mana for that one spell. My spells are more powerful, but yeah, it uses all my mana no matter what,
So that sounds really powerful, but also really weak.
Jace said. Yeah, I only have 2 health, so I'll need every gear buff we can find to get my stats to normal. I did see that I was able to use my charisma to influence those guys. I saw like floating hearts above their heads. It seemed to make them change their minds, I replied. What about your class?
It's called Executive Dungeon Chef. Before I tell you what it is your interface a total asshole?
Yeah, pretty much, I said. Sassy as hell.
Yeah, mine too. So, I guess I can give buffs to the food I prepare. I can identify monsters and creatures for their potential ingredients. I can see how different ingredients could work together to get different bonuses or just be delicious. I also have exceptional expertise in culinary equipment, which the interface loved to give me a lot of shit about, by the way, saying I was going to whip up some bad guys with my mixer. It said it's a mythic class, but I'm not seeing it, and I put on like 50 pounds. I don't feel it, but I can see less of my feet now. I do have an ability called Chef's Kiss that I can use once per 24 hours. At current level, I can imbue food with an additional special bonus of either health, defense, or attack. Those 3 categories. I have a bar that replaced my mana that, if during combat I collect ingredients, it builds up. Then I can go into some sort of chef mode. Made it sound a little like going berserk. Full Gordon Ramsay in the kitchen.
Sounds pretty interesting. By the way, I like the outfit, I said with a snicker.
Yeah, it says I have to keep the outfit on, or else I won't get any of the bonuses. Something about a health inspector. I don't know. It gave me a starter's chef kit box, and I got a cooking stove, a pan, some basic spices, and some other odds and ends. It did say that once we get to level 3, we can put down a campfire to rest. Sounds like it's some sort of safe zone area where I may be able to do some cooking. It also said that is where the official bathrooms are.
Jace said, giving air quotes over his last few words.
And more water are. Sounds like we need to push forward and grind until then. Shall we?
Wait, I feel like I could snap at any moment. I want to put on this race to see if it helps, I said as I opened my inventory selecting Mythic Rare Race, Random Complimentary. I selected yes, and a message popped up.
Race assigned. User must reach level 5 for racial transformation to occur.
Just great. Looks like I assigned my race, but I don't even know what it is. It says I transform at level 5. I really don't like the sound of transforming, I said to Jace. Counting the necklace that gave me more charisma, which also increased my mana regeneration was currently a little over 1 mana per second. I tried to do some rough math in my head. I came to the conclusion I would need just a few ticks under 15 minutes before my mana was fully recharged from empty. I don't know about this dude. I'm gonna be fucking useless. I can only cast 1 spell like every 15 minutes. That means I'm good for 1 cast a fight.
I'll take the lead. I'm already 10% towards my next level off that one guy. Hopefully, we find some easy guys, can get to level 3 and get that camp thing,
Jace said, trying to pep me up.
Did you look at the quest?
I didn't, I replied as I pulled it up.
Welcome to Level 1. You are inside a dungeon where conflict could be at any corner. Survive, obtain a key, survive, and find a door that leads to Level 2. Hint: to get the key, the fat lady should scream or sing, whichever you prefer. Level 1 parameters. Party available. Max party size unlimited. Loot and environment. Non-lootable environment, exception of story items. Loot boxes generated on death. Suspended animation on non-user death. Map 1% visible per user level. Progress towards campaign completion. 0 out of 30 levels complete. Chapter 4.
We started making our way down the hall. The torches were spaced out far enough apart that there were long stretches with dim light. As we slowly moved between the dim patches, I really wished my light orb was normal. The walls were stone, and besides passing the fork in the road where the gym rats had turned down, there wasn't anything of interest. I pulled up my map, which was pretty useless. Everything was black except for the area right around where I was standing. Jace didn't even appear on the map, unless I stood right next to him. When I did stand next to him, he showed up as a green dot. As I moved, the black came back, covering the area where we had been. I was really hoping for a map, like in games where it showed everywhere you had been permanently visible. After a few minutes of experimenting with the map, we continued down the hall. We walked for several minutes down the stone corridor, our scenery unchanging from the basic stone. Jace saw them first, halting when they came into view. There were bodies on the floor up ahead. There were 3, and as we inched closer, we recognized them as the group we had talked to on our walk to the cave, minus Diego. One lay on the ground, and the other 2 were propped up against the stone wall. They looked like they were frozen, minus the moisture. It was more like they were suspended, as if someone had clicked the pause button on them.
Hey, you guys, okay?
Jace said, taking a step towards them. There was no reply. The women had the same loincloth I had, but also a strip of fabric around their chest. As we got closer, we saw 3 grave cross sticks, like you see on the side of the road. The lettering was in glowing blue against the stick's slate black.
Isabella Gonzalez, Denver, Colorado. Slain by enslaved orcs. Sophia Gonzalez, Denver, Colorado. Slain by enslaved orcs. Sarah Gonzalez, Denver, Colorado. Slain by enslaved orcs.
I didn't see Diego. I hoped he had made his luck roll and was now alive with a powerful class.
Fuck,
Jace said, and it was eerie. All 3 faces showed anguish. It was pretty messed up. Each had various gruesome stab wounds. I had never seen a dead person in real life, and it gave me more of an emotional reaction than I had guessed, especially seeing that I had just met them a few hours ago. I had an idea and took the bottle of mini heals from my inventory. I plucked a pill and tried to shove it in Isabella's mouth, but it struck an invisible barrier. I didn't think it was going to work, but I had to try. Jace bowed his head.
we are going to make this right.
Jace said under his breath. Nave. We kept cautiously continuing down the hall until we came across a wooden door. The door had a wreath on the outside, like you would have on your door for Christmas. As we got closer, multicolored Christmas lights began to blink on the wreath.
Wait, what month is it?
Jace asked.
It's a long ways until Christmas. Think it's a trap?
Probably, but there's only one way to find out, I said, quickly turning the handle and pushing the door open, jumping back as it swung open. The door opened a few feet and then slowly closed shut with a creak and a click of the handle. I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary, except for the general unordinary situation I was in. I now had the upper half of a bodybuilder, wearing a loincloth while in a dungeon, as some sort of shitty wizard with charm power. Thinking about it, I realized I would probably fit right in on one of those drama vampire shows my wife liked.
I should probably go first, having more than 2 health and all.
Jace said, opening the door. We entered into a cozy room. A fireplace roared, and there was a comfy couch with Christmas decorations covering the room from head to toe. A large Christmas tree stood in the corner, with presents of all different wrapping paper under the tree. It looked like Christmas Day in a Duke's British manor, where a blonde-haired boy, that I would assume was named Charlie, would be opening every present imaginable.
This is just weird. Why is there a room full of Christmas decor?
Jace said.
I don't get it.
Beats me, I said. Is this a fire thing like you talked about? I asked, pointing to the fireplace.
Not sure. Interface made it seem like we had to be level 3 and it called it a campfire though, so I don't think so.
Jace replied. We've only been in this dungeon for a little bit, and this place seems pretty fucked up, I said. We started going around the room, looking behind things and nudging them with our foot. We figured out that nothing could be moved except for the Christmas presents. After a few minutes, the room seemed to be empty. I went over to the Christmas lights. These could be useful, I said. The lights were frozen in place. They wouldn't move no matter how much strength I used. I first thought it was because of my low stats, so I called Jace over. We both heaved, but they didn't budge. My interface finally spoke.
Weren't you paying attention? Didn't you hear the whole thing about all non-quest items being frozen? If you can't pay attention to these kind of details, you are screwed, and not in the good way.
We both finally walked away from the Christmas lights. Wonder if there is any loot in the Christmas presents? Only thing that can move, I asked. I walked over and kicked a bright green present. To my surprise, it actually moved a few inches, unfrozen like the other Christmas stuff. Fucking game is lying to us now, telling us that non-quest items are frozen. I lifted it up and gave it a shake. The box seemed empty, with nothing moving inside, until something did move. Large teeth opened up on the seam in the wrapping paper, and a long tongue protruded. Large eyes popped into existence, now locked on mine. I dropped the package as an exclamation passed my lips. I looked to see all of the presents under the tree coming alive. "It's fucking Christmas present mimics," I said, running towards the door. There were at least 20 presents using their long tongues to move their bodies towards us. One of them leapt towards me, and Jace slashed out, severing its tongue. As it fell to the ground, Jace caught the tongue mid-air. It disappeared from his hands, going into his inventory, while Jace gave the box a kick, sending it soaring into the fireplace. I took position behind Jace as the presents started jumping towards us. Jace quickly had 10 latched to his body, biting down. Jace screamed in pain. Best time as any to try something new. I lifted my hand and sent out a light orb. The orb exploded, but this time it only seemed like someone turned up the brightness a few degrees before it went back to normal. The mimic presents dropped to the ground, now stunned and unable to see. Jace went to work, one by one slicing off their tongues, which quickly disappeared into his inventory. I started picking up the ones he had already cut and was throwing them into the fireplace. The boxes crackled in the fire, creating an acrid purple smoke. After a few moments, all the mimics were burned. "Are the tongues really the priority?" I asked as we rested.
Yeah, man.
Jace said.
There are some good things I can do with those. There are a few recipes I'm already itching to try with the gym rat meat and now these tongues. Doing the collection during combat gives me this chef mojo stuff too. Also, I'm up to 50% till next level. Halfway there.
I went to my character overview, looking at the experience bar. The bar did not show an experience point number, just a bar that had 40% center aligned. In video games and tabletop games, I was used to knowing exactly how many experiences points I had and how many I received from killing monsters. This place didn't seem to be that transparent. "I'm only at 40%, I said. "Looks like my non-participation with that gym rat, I didn't get any experience. But I don't get how the experience works. I don't see how much I got for doing what. Does that mean beating one gym rat was 10% of a level?"
No idea. I can't see anything on my screens about how much I get for what. All I see is a percentage.
Jace replied. I needed a short break. My now frail body was loving every second of lying on the couch. A couch that we had thoroughly poked and prodded for a good while before we felt confident in placing our defenseless derrieres. I knew it probably wasn't healthy that my mind was drifting to the negative, but it was hard not to in a fucked up place and fucked up situation we were in. How the hell was I going to get my family back with just 2 fucking health and these weird-ass classes? Jace had his travel cooking stove going as he diced up the tongues and gym rat love handles. As Jace muttered to himself about needing more ingredients, I was trying to think of good excuses on how I could avoid putting any of that in my mouth. Even with the chef outfit, I was not feeling confident about eating it. Even if it was delicious, it was still monster meat. I scrolled through my interface tabs, landing on my inventory and forgetting about the noob-level loot box of the coward I had received earlier. I opened it. 2 things popping up in my inventory. My interface talking with text scrolling before I could get a good look at what they were. One of them looked like a green box.
Congratulations. You are a total coward. You have gained a 5-pack of Depends adult diapers. Now with maximum absorbency, absorbing 25 times its weight. What a relief it must be to know next time you are running in terror, letting your companions do all the work and a monster jumps out and you shit yourself. Depends has your back. Additional reward, 1 large tube of Icy Hot to help with that sick burn I just gave you.
I rolled my eyes after the message finished. This interface was a total asshole. Icy Hot isn't even for burns, I said aloud. It's for like muscle pain.
I'll show you some muscle pain when I bend you over.
Jace handed me a plate. giving me a confused look at my seemingly random spoken words. I realized that I was indeed pretty hungry once the aroma hit my senses. It smelled pretty good, and even knowing where this stuff had come from, my hunger finally overcame my disgust.
All right. So, I used my once every 24 hours ability. I have imbued the food with health. I assume this is one of the reasons we are complementary. Let's see what happens.
Jay said. I took a tentative bite. It was a bit chewy, but overall, it was pretty good. But I wouldn't say great. Well, I wouldn't say it to Jace. A meal, if not hungry, I may have skipped, though. After I finished, a notification popped up. I selected it, and my interface spoke.
Would you look at that? You just ate human flesh. While it did have a rat-like head, you knew the rest of it was human, right? Hannibal Lecter, move out of the way. Here you come. You have gained +5 temporary health points, or HP. Temporary HP is lost before permanent HP and will expire after 24 hours. Hey, before I go, I have a joke for you. What did you get when you came home late for dinner? The cold shoulder. Get it? Get it?
Yeah, I get it, I said out loud.
Then why aren't you laughing?
Dude, that was a huge bonus, I said, excitement building. Going from 2 to 7 health is going to be huge for me. Things were looking up. Maybe we could do this. So far, so good. One step at a time. Jace packed up his cooking supplies in his inventory. As I found a corner of the room to relieve myself, I thought about how there seemed to be an unforeseen advantage to Jace's curse. I hadn't seen Jace have to pee since we got here, but I didn't think he would consider it much of a silver lining. It was a bummer we couldn't add anything from the room to our inventory. Having a string of Christmas lights could help later. Hey, don't judge. It could. What if we had to swing from a ledge over a large crevasse like Indiana Jones? Once we were all packed up, Jace went to the door. He cracked it open just an inch, taking a peek, then quickly closed it.
There are fucking frog or toad-looking guys right outside the door.
Jace whispered.
Like a lot of them. This place is weird as shit.
What, frog guys? I asked.
Yeah, they are like in a row of 3 filling up the hall. Looks like a lot of them. Like a huge fucking army of toads.
Jace said. Am I hearing you right? Did you say an army of frog or toad people?
I did indeed. I think more like frog people. But goddamn, there were a lot of them.
Jace replied. Do we wait it out? They will have to find like water or something to jump into soon, right? I asked. A few seconds passed as we strained to try and hear any movement on the other side of the door. Then there was a loud creak, and then a heavy bang. And then the ground started shaking, and the walls started closing in around us. No bullshit. It looked like we were about to live the trash compactor scene from Star Wars. But our situation also including the ceiling, all pushing towards the door. And we were also not the main characters in a story, so we had no writers looking out for us to live.
Oh shit,
Jace exclaimed. Furniture started to smash along with the popping of bulbs. We only had a minute before all the contents in the room were going to shove towards us, making opening the door impossible. We have to take our chances, open the door, and I'll shoot my light orb, and we'll make a run for it, I yelled over the deafening noise of moving furniture. Jace opened the door wide, revealing a frogman who was now jumping multiple feet in the air in surprise, his mouth agape. The frogmen, or maybe I should say frog people, as I really had no idea what gender they all might be. I don't even think I would know if I was shown any of their gender-specific parts, not that I wanted to see any of their parts. The frog people were wearing thin, loose leather unitards that were tinted red and makeshift spears with a bright red strip of cloth at the transition from wood to stone tip. They stood around 3 to 4 feet tall and looked like humanoid frogs. I threw out the light orb, the brightness turning up for a few seconds until it faded. The hallway we were in before was now packed, just as Jace had described. The hallway was 3 wide of frog people as far as the eye could see in either direction. There were at least 50. I started pushing them out of our way, going back the way we came down the hall. The frogmen in our area were all stunned, clutching their ears, with some of the closest ones to the blast on the ground. It didn't take long until we started pushing frogs that were less affected. We were finally faced with frog people that had turned and faced towards us, waiting for us to push through their line and confront us. Things were not looking good. I was useless. Utterly useless. I had already used my spell, and my mana was not even back to 1% of my max. I would have even contemplated using my fists if I didn't feel so frail. I had zero doubt my wrist would snap as my fists made contact even on their flubbery faces. Jace started swinging next to me, getting one on the neck green ooze, pouring down the frog's throat, as fear and pain were expressed on its face. It was then that I felt a stab from behind, looking back. A spear was now plunged into my side. As the frog people were quite small, so too were their spears. Even with the limited strength of the frog people and the small size of the spear, it still pierced through my thick oblique a few inches. My vision went dark.
Chapter 5.
I came to with a liquid being poured down my throat. I looked up and saw a thick piece of wood, my hands and feet bound. I quickly realized I was hogtied, my back swinging, feet off the ground. The liquid tasted like fruit punch, so I didn't immediately think to spit it out. I was glad I didn't, as I saw Jace behind me. We were head to head on different pieces of wood, both of us hogtied. Jace had one of his hands free, feeding me the potion, holding his cleaver's knife between his teeth. The next thing I noticed was the humidity in the air. It felt like I had just left the airplane after landing in Florida.
That was close, man,
Jace said.
That stab took you to -1. I should probably keep some of those healing pills just in case. I only have a few noob healing potions. I did learn that you die at -10 health. Once below 0, you lose 1 health per minute, but get extra time based on your constitution bonus. For me, it's every 20 minutes, but for you, it was every minute you lost 1 health. You were at -8 before they walked out, leaving us alone. They put my knife over on that table and didn't account for just how lucky I was in having a cursed blade that always comes back. They could be back any minute. I don't have any game plan. I was just going to pretend I was still tied up until you were well enough for us to try and escape.
Sounds good. Thanks for the save, man, I said. I opened my interface to see how I was doing stat-wise. There was a notification waiting that I selected my interface talking.
Welcome back. You are one lucky SOB that you are in a party, or else that would have been it. Your family's fate in the hands of the most cutthroat person on Earth. Achievement unlocked. Coming back from the dead. Reward. You came back from the dead. What more can one really ask for? Oh, have I told you yet about potion toxicity? Seems like something you are going to run into soon with how things are going. Users can only use 1 potion per so many minutes based on constitution bonus. For you, it's quite a long time. Go you. That's why those healing pills you got are so valuable. They bend the rules, and therefore potion toxicity does not apply.
As my interface finished, 2 frog people entered the room, making their way towards us. They got within 10 or so feet and squatted down, their thin, spindly legs making their knees sit above their heads. I took in the room, seeing it was a plain stone room, the same as the halls and Christmas room we were in earlier. The only difference was there was a makeshift pond in the corner with stacked up rubble holding in a few feet of water, lily pads floating on top. With a little bit of raked sand around it, you could very well have a nice Japanese garden.
Yes, these 2 will do nicely for the feast this evening. I heard they just walked right into one of our patrols. Quite lucky with the impending celebration and all,
one of the frog people said to the other, after inspecting us from afar. I was glad that I had eaten Jace's meal earlier, knowing that was the only reason I was still alive. But now I no longer had the temporary HP. Man, I was frail. 1 stab, and I was done.
Everything must be perfect for the ceremony. The uniting of the red and blue clans will not unravel under my watch. For 1,000 years we have hoped for peace. Our princess looked beautiful this morning as she traveled to Blue. Did she not?
The other frog replied, a gleam in his eye.
Yes, most beautiful,
the first speaking frog said.
Let's eat this muscular one first, then we'll save the juicy fat one for dessert. We should get him started so he is nice and blackened by the time we are ready for the first course,
he said, licking his lips. The 2 frogs headed towards me, lining up to take position on either side of my wood prison. I have an idea, I whispered to Jace. Wish me luck. Get out of here if you don't hear from me in an hour. Jace and I locked eyes, and I could tell Jace was thinking the same thing I was. This was fucking real, and this could be the last time we see each other. As they started walking me out of the room, I got my brain in motion, thinking of how to execute my plan. The title of my class had Charismatic in the title. I really hoped that did what I thought it did. We were walking down a long stone hall. Red banners hung everywhere, covering most of the stone. Even upside down, I could see the red banners had a proud-looking frogman stenciled on them. I took a deep breath and spoke to my frog prison transport. "Hello, I think there has been quite the misunderstanding. I am actually here as a messenger," I said to the frogs.
A messenger? A messenger for who?
The frog guy in the rear said. I couldn't tell if my charisma was working or not. Through the jostling and swinging, unable to see if there were hearts floating above the head on the frog behind me. "I have a message from Blue. They have said they will not accept Red's princess. They claim she's far too ugly," and I paused, trying to think of something. "That they would never accept a red bride," and I said, stumbling over my lie. A few seconds passed, and I saw no reaction from either of them. I was seeing the frogs upside down, and my expertise in reading frog facial expressions was quite low, even if I was right side up and not swinging, but it didn't seem good.
Well, I don't want to be the guy who brings the message about the messenger with a bad message. The saying goes, don't kill the messenger, right? Would that be me if I gave a message to the king about the messenger?
The frog from behind said.
I like your thinking.
The frog in the front said.
Let's make Pildions Aligos do it.
Good idea.
The frog from behind said with a laugh.
Hey, Pildions Aligos!
The front frog called to a frog walking fast down the hall.
This guy is a messenger from Blue and will only talk to the king directly. Can you inform the king the messenger will be in the throne room?
The front frog said.
Of course,
said the frog I assumed was named Pigdions Aligos, as he raced off down the hall.
Phew!
The back frog said.
All right, hurry up. Let's bring him to the chamber and get the hell out of here. Want to see what Pilapahura B and Gunuhe Atali B are up to?
The front frog said.
Oh, do I? It's breeding season. You don't have to ask me twice.
The back frog said. They started running down the hallway, my body swinging like a pendulum. I started to feel sick to my stomach, but luckily it was short-lived as I was set down. My world still spinning but slowing as I heard the two frogs flee. I was barely able to make out a raised, circular, multi-tiered platform that looked like it had a pool at the top with a stone-like throne. I could smell the thick humidity in the room, which had upgraded from Florida to a tropical zoo enclosure. Also, I'm not sure if you have ever been hogtied or not, but it's uncomfortable. Really uncomfortable. My wrists were starting to ache along with my neck, trying to keep it upright.
What news, Ribbit? Do you bring human messenger? Ribbit?
A commanding frog voice said, his speech interrupted by the classic frog noise, almost like hiccups. My Excellency, I said, it is an honor to be in your presence. I believe there has been a great misunderstanding. I am but a messenger bringing news.
I just heard, Ribbit, reports that you attacked and tried to flee. Ribbit, how were we supposed to know you were a Ribbit messenger? But by the lily, I don't care. What news, Ribbit, do you bring?
The Frog King replied, My king, I would first like to petition that I no longer want to work for Blue. I would like to lend my insight to you and inform you on Blue's stronghold, so you may better vanquish them.
Ribbit, get on with it.
The Frog King bellowed. Blue has stated they will not accept Red's princess. They stated she is far too ugly, and the king refuses to take a red bride, I said, as confidently as I could muster. The frog, Pidion's Aligos, had come over as I spoke and started to untie me. I got to my feet, glad to see the world in the direction it was meant to be seen. Pidion's Aligos was standing guard next to me, a spear in his hands at the ready. The Frog King did look pretty regal, but also a little silly. He had on a billowing cloak and held a golden-tipped spear with the same bright red cloth. He had a reed-looking crown on his head, which included multiple cattails protruding upwards. He had many stray gray hairs jetting out from his chin, signaling his old age.
Ribbit, leave us.
The Frog King bellowed again. Pudion's Aligos glanced wearily between me and the king, but eventually did as he was told. Just as Pedion's Aligos left, closing a large wooden door behind him, the Frog King's composure melted as he started to cry, He was sitting on his throne with his knees up high, water racing down his face and dropping into the pool. His cries were mixed with blubbering that I couldn't understand, with lots of ribbits mixed in.
This was my last chance.
The Frog King cried out between sobs, finally able to understand him.
I should have known they would never accept her,
he said again between sobs. I didn't know what to do. Should I console him? How do you console a frog person? Lucky for me, I was able to just stand here as he finally regained his composure.
I have Ribbit, the ribbits you see, reverting back to an unevolved state. I don't have long before I will be all but Ribbit, a basic amphibian. This was my last chance to unite our two houses before they found out just how weak I was.
The Frog King began to sob again. I had a pretty ruthless idea and was at a loss for anything else that I could do. They were going to eat me a few moments ago, right? My king. May I make a suggestion? Blue is weak today. They have let down their guard and are still going through with their great feast. I say you muster your forces. Attack while you have the chance. Go out as a true warrior king, I said with as much gusto as I could muster. My interface started talking unprompted.
Lucky for you, charisma is not solely based on the words that come out of your mouth, or you would be dead and turned into frog shit by now. But dear God, man, some of your charm ability is in your words. Figure your shit out.
A few moments passed, then I started to see it. The same somewhat opaque, cartoonish-looking hearts were floating over his head, popping as they traveled up a few feet. The hearts didn't seem as solid as with the gym rats, but they were still pretty visible.
You're right. We shall fight. I will be remembered. We shall conquer Blue this day,
he bellowed. The Frog King started to ring a bell hanging from a pole in his pool. I heard the sound of marching as Pedion's Aligos went over to open the large wooden door. Moments later, frogmen started marching in. I was quickly smashed into the back corner as the entire room filled up with frogmen, all with spears in their hands. They looked like a pretty formidable militia, uniformly lined up besides the frog who was assigned to my corner. He gave me a dirty look. I couldn't get to the door easily, so I waited.
Today, Blue has disgraced us by not accepting our Ribbit princess,
the Frog King bellowed.
No surprise there, she was a total toad.
One of the frogs whispered in front of me.
I'd do her,
another one replied. These frogmen were kind of disgusting. Maybe it was the whole breeding season thing.
Today we fight. We fight for our princess. Fight for your king. Fight for Red.
The Frog King cried out, surprisingly void of any ribbits. The frogmen bellowed a throaty croak, and they charged out of the room, Pedion's Aligos and the king following.